Hello and welcome. Here again talking about Buddhism, not in a fluffy way, but the practice that the Buddha teaches us in the Dharma, the practice of keeping moral virtue, practicing meditation and developing wisdom that comes about through opening our eyes, awakening, seeing the truth, the reality that can be seen in our surroundings, the conditions we live in, and internally within our physical being. Another tooth came out yesterday, or a piece of it. You've got to be very careful when that happens not to accidentally bite the piece that's broken off, because that will break another one. You have a domino effect of teeth removing themselves. But someone has very kindly sent in a donation to help me see a dentist in the city, in Colombo, which I haven't arranged yet, and perhaps to some extent have a few reservations, maybe waiting until maybe I'm next in another country. So I haven't had the greatest of experiences of hospitals here. However, I think in Colombo, in the city, there are some private dentists there, but there's no immediate problem. It's okay. The tooth that was causing me discomfort and pain, with some poking around and persistence with the remaining ends of incense sticks, which make very good toothpicks, that pain seems to have gone away by itself. I think the nerve dies after a while. So this is internal reflection that doesn't require a lot of analytical study. It's suffering, isn't it? It's just a pain in the gob, in the mouth. A toothache is just that. And I receive a lot of emails, which I'm very happy to receive and grateful for. And I read them and I reply to them. And a common theme within these is a long description, usually, of a person's current circumstances. And it can be anything from a noisy neighbour to being in a war-forlorn country with bombs going off all around them. Ultimately, it's the same thing. It is what the Buddha taught. It can all be summed up as suffering. So whether it's the war zones around you, the noisy neighbour, a painful tooth. I also have a dodgy eye, but I have medication for that. That's hopefully, it won't get better, but it won't get worse. I have another inspection of that at the end of the Vasa in October. We'll see how that goes. Maybe I might have to spend a few nights at some point in the future in Bangkok. Or someone did actually indicate that Singapore is a place where people go for medical attention that are here. So it isn't that I'm saying that there's anything wrong, but the language barrier is the main issue that one finds here. So it's all suffering, isn't it? On that note, I say this isn't fluffy Buddhism, because I don't beat around the bush and say that meditation is the answer to all of these things, and that meditation is easy. You just sit and meditate and everything goes away. It's like the common idea that becoming a monk is such a great thing. You just come away to a country far away from all of your troubles, running away, getting away, hiding, but leaving everything behind and then living this comfortable, enjoyable, peaceful life of calm, tranquility and meditation. Well, you may hear in a minute, and you've probably heard before, there's a lot of noise here. This is quite a rural situation. It's not that far from a main road, and it's certainly quite close to a busy main railway line. There are dogs, household dogs and wild dogs that you'll hear barking from time to time. People in the nearest house, although it's not that near, you can hear the kitchen and cooking and pots and pans. But even in the deep forest monasteries, meditation is often disturbed by the sound of nature, not the pleasant pitter-patter of rain or the tuneful song of birds, but often the squawking, squealing, how do you describe it, sound of cicadas, for instance, which is just like a chainsaw hitting metal. It's a very, very disturbing sound. But we understand this as being something we don't like. We recognize aversion or hatred. Lobha, moha, lobha, dosa, moha. Dosa, hatred, lobha, greed, wanting. These are the three defilements we're trying to eradicate. Now, we can't eradicate them without seeing them. So we also have to, or come to understand, that this has always been the case. This is why the Buddha's teachings are so relevant today as they were back 2,568 years ago. The suffering comes in our attachment to what we believe we like, what we desire, what we want, and our aversion to what it is we don't want. For instance, a disturbing neighbour, or the sound of bombs going off around us. The latter, of course, is an infringement on your own personal well-being, safety, life, and is inevitably creating immense fear in anyone in such a situation. So, of course, we have compassion for such situations, people in such situations, and we hope that, as is the nature of all things, that with time this will change also. All conditioned things are impermanent. But then likewise, people whose existence is very, very blessed, very peaceful, very calm, this too is impermanent, anicca. These all, by the nature of this impermanence, lead to dukkha, suffering. And this is all out of our control. Now, I can no more control the surrounding sounds to where I'm staying, or if I'm in the jungle, the noises of nature, or if we're in the town, our next door neighbours, or the busy roads, or the nightclub across the road, than we can control what tooth is going to fall out next through the natural progression of life, aging, sickness and death. This is anicca, dukkha, anatta. So this is Buddhism to be understood, not attached to. And the first comment is, can I explain what nibana in detail? Can you explain what's nibana in detail? Is it a place or what? So it's not a place or what. It isn't anything. All conditioned things are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and out of our control. Anicca, dukkha, anatta. Nibbana is outside of that. It is freedom from suffering. It isn't of this conditioned world we understand through our five sense doors of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and that can be conceived as a conceptual thought, an idea, a theory. It can't even be imagined because it is without comparison. So can I explain what it is in detail? No. I can only explain what it isn't. It isn't anything we know unless we have the experience of it ourselves, in which case then it cannot be unknown once experienced. And it is in the Buddha's teachings that we follow where we are instructed how we can experience for it, nibana, for ourselves, and thus be awakened, awake. Buddha means awakened one. So our awakening or enlightenment comes as a glimpse of nibana, that once seen and known cannot be unseen, cannot be unknown. But also, like, as I've said before just recently, the colour yellow without comparison cannot be described. You can say it's the same, it's the colour of a lemon, the colour of a banana, but you cannot actually specifically describe what it is. Maybe in some kind of form of science one can describe the nature of the light that creates it, but most of us wouldn't understand that. You can only say what it isn't. Well, it isn't blue, it isn't red, it isn't green. So that's how one can see or understand nibana in detail. But the simple thing to do is to practice. By keeping 5 precepts and practicing meditation, you'll get a glimpse of nibana. You don't have to go to the other side of the world. I've ended up here. I came here, I didn't come here, I've just eventually ended up here. Because I'm not a traveller as such. I originally I went to Thailand, had to return to England, and then ended up ordaining in India, another visit to Thailand, and I've, by natural progression, causes and conditions surrounding me, invitations, kindness of others, people allowing me to do this, because monks don't use money. But there are incidental costs that we come across. We have to, certain regulations in local countries, we have visas that need to be either arranged or paid for. It all takes a little bit of money, and through kind donations here, that's facilitated. But lay people are able to deal with that side of things for me. So I'm very much really wandering without a direction, but very happy that I found a place where I can settle now and not have to wander any further. Previously it's been usually because visas have run out, or it's been various different stages of my own personal training and needs to be around different environments, different monasteries, different aspects and forms of the Sangha. But that now has hopefully come to a stage whereby I'm able to just settle here. And what have I done? So I have a little phone here with the questions on. But they sometimes update these things, don't they? And it all changes. Anicca. There we go, we have the next question. May I ask what is the protocol for a woman to become a bhikkhuni, and can a nun live and practice in a similar place like this alone? Now, it's much the same as a bhikkhu or monk, but you do it in a female version of that. Now, I'm afraid I don't have first-hand experience, obviously, or knowledge as to that process. Monks don't have an interaction with nuns. We don't all live together in perfect peace and harmony. We're kept very separate. So you'd have to search, and I'm not sure where you are exactly, but I know there is a nun in... Oh, and someone's replied to you about a place already here in given you some ideas as to where you can go. I think really the answer is just Google that online, Bhikkhuni monasteries, and then depending on where you are, you should go and speak to some nuns or email them and ask them where they, because I can't direct you to any particular one. There is a newly established Bhikkhuni monastery, training monastery in the UK, which is known as the Anukampa project. And if you Google that, Anukampa project, it should come up. Or Venerable Bhikkhuni, that is Chanda, C-A-N-D-A. So otherwise, I'm sorry, I can't really give you much information on that. Right, when are we going for the next level and discuss most important suttas for beginners? The next level, eh? Right, okay. I'm not up to the next level. I don't think I qualify for that, if there is such a thing. So I discuss, as I say, not in a fluffy way, but the way we practically apply the teachings of the Buddha, the Dharma, to our lives, not only as monks whom face similar, but no, different, but ultimately similar kinds of suffering as people in lay life do, just of a very different nature. I mean, many people whom, like the previous inquiry, seeing this, think, yes, beautiful and green, but I'm being absolutely bitten like crazy by mosquitoes sitting here, even though I have a mosquito coil that's supposed to make them not come around so much, but no fan out here, so I'm getting bitten. It's very damp, it's very humid, and I go out each day begging for my food. So I show you the nice bits, and not with a view to glossing it up, there's no need to do so, but it is just to, it's just to show you as it is, really, but you can't appreciate on the screen the sheer temperature or the feelings. You get only just hearing and seeing, isn't there? So the next level, well, and the most important suttas, as I say very often, the cardinal suttas are in the core sequence of the chanting book. So the Mangala Sutta, the Ratana Sutta, the Kadayana Sutta, and then you can go further within the chanting book and get good summaries of those suttas, or you can, and you should be, and you are, and quite capable of reading these suttas in the Tipitaka yourself, in the Sutta Pitaka, the word of the Buddha, the teachings of the Buddha. And I'm often asked this, it seems lately, when am I going to start talking and teaching or something about, well, I'm not a teacher, nor am I an intellectual, nor am I a reader. I've studied and read the suttas for my own benefit and put them to practical use, and also it has led me to ordination, and I put them now to practical use, not only having done so in lay life, but now in monastic life, where we employ the protection, the support, the guidance of the other part of these three baskets of the Buddha's teachings, the Vinaya Pitaka, which is thousands of rules, but they're not rules, they're support guidelines for how we should live as monks or nuns. So there's that too. But I don't bore people by sitting, well, it was not boring, it's very interesting to sit and listen to readings from the suttas, and then even discussions and commentaries afterwards, because there's many of those available already here on YouTube. And someone made a comment that all of the suttas are available on Audible or something like that, which is, I think, like a book. You hear just the words of the, reading, people reading books out loud, audio books, yes. So whether that's free or not, I don't know, but there are many freely available sources, and monks, other monks, not myself, often reading aspects and sections of suttas and then discussing it afterwards. So I leave that to them, because my view is we should read the suttas and take from them what is useful. What we don't understand, we should just leave. There's plenty of them. There's 84,000 suttas, all teaching exactly the same thing, that there's suffering and there's an end of suffering. That's it. That's what the Buddha left us. That is the Dharma. To cover very many different scenarios. Like I said, within all of those emails, from a noisy neighbour, to problems with alcohol, to living in a war zone, to a disruptive work environment, or painful knees. Whatever it is, it's suffering. We need to find the cause of that suffering. And the cause of that suffering is not wanting it to be so. When we see that, we're enlightened. But you have to really see it and apply it. And then you will be able to develop these Brahma Viharas, these qualities within us that keep our calmness, our tranquility, our peace of mind and emotions level, allowing a degree of joy and bliss and peace and happiness and harmony to arise in the mind. And in turn our bodies also to relax and become more settled and then less prone to suffering, ailments and illness. I mean, simply I find I did run off to a dentist when I first had some bad toothache, which was a bit of a waste of time the first time, although I did perhaps need some antibiotics. But these things will just go away of their own accord. But of course one needs to replace any teeth that have completely gone if it's necessary. But at the moment I've got plenty to be going on with. So that is, for me, the next level. The level we're talking about reading these most important suttas, I'm rather assuming we're all there with having done that. And if not, it doesn't matter either. You can do that in their simplest form in the chanting book, in the more detailed form through the suttas themselves. And then you apply them. And where a sutta comes up that's very detailed, very complex, and you don't understand it, then don't spend weeks and months and years of your life analysing it, discussing it, debating it. Move on to the next one, where it says, a dog bit my leg, there was pain, I knew it was pain, and I knew that the pain was impermanent, the pain will go away. That's not a sutta, but that's an understanding of how to deal with a pain such as that. Simple. But then when you look at the 12 links of dependent origination and what can be considered as more complex areas of Dharma, it becomes rather convoluted and a little bit more difficult to tackle. But you can experience all of these things. You stub your toe, it's pain. But what makes that pain bearable, even though you think it isn't at the time, is that you are bearing it. And it does go away. Of course, people suffer with incurable conditions and continual pain throughout their lives. But even then, there is an acceptance of it, not through choice, but through necessity, and to some extent a getting used to it. And in Buddhism, we're not prevented from medical intervention and help and pain relief. In fact, it's positively encouraged, because pain itself is a distraction, a hindrance, considered an intoxicant, in fact, to our practice of meditation. So that's what I'd suggest there. The question is a bit back to front, really. I'm not sure I really understood the question fully. But we're not going to any other levels, I'm afraid. This is basic Buddhism. As I've said in the talk before, this is very basic Buddhism, but it's also advanced level Buddhism. Because if you cannot put it into practice, then you need to go back to basics. If you can put it into practice, you have realized there's no need to move on from the basics. If you want to do anything else in addition to the basics, it's all optional extras. It's things you can do. You can learn Pali, you can learn Sanskrit. You can study the Abhidharma. You can learn the suttas, as many people do, in the Pali language. You can learn all the chanting, as many people do, in the Pali language. But that will not free you from suffering within this lifetime. A full comprehension of suffering and what it is, and that it is always present, is knowing the Dharma. How to practice mindfulness when you are around people that make you feel stressed. Mindfully move out of that situation, avoiding those people that make you stressed would be the logical thing to do. However, this is not always an option that we have, in which case you just exercise Khanti, we call it, patient endurance for the time that you're with them. You can listen. You don't need to be drawn into any debate or argument. And you are actually only feeling perhaps their stress. It is them who are stressed. Maybe they're rushing around in a big panic and stress, and it's affecting you. Out of compassion, you have compassion for them. You would prefer that they weren't stressed. But unless you're able to directly assist and take that burden of stress away from them, you can only be there at the sidelines to observe, and observe with metta, with loving kindness. And if things start to go well, you can have mudita joy. This is where these 4 Brahma Viharas, which should be very much developed within us for our own well-being as well as that of all others. Metta isn't just for sending out to other people. Compassion or karuna isn't just for other people. It's for ourselves also, within us, in order that we can have that feeling for others. So with compassion, you can just allow the people to go about their stressful situation and be one step away from it, bringing your mind, your attention to the meditation object of the breath, breathing in, breathing out. If they're trying to involve you in the situation, you can still, with mindfulness, know it is an action that you're doing, and it all boils down to what you're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and what you're maybe in this situation having to think about. See each of those things as just that. What you're seeing is just light. What you're hearing is just sounds. So if it's constant chitter-chatter, it's just sounds. If it's things you'd rather not see, it is still just light. It's what's going on in your mind, what you're thinking, how you're interpreting these signals, that is either what's drawing you towards it or pushing you away from it, where you're breeding either sensual desire, so wanting, or aversion, so not wanting. We build these hindrances up, we develop these hindrances ourselves, so we can also break them down. We can separate them into their causes and components and see the suffering is just coming within you. How to practice mindfulness when you're around them. You can practice mindfulness in any situation. But I think what you're meaning to say is, how do we deal with it, really? How do we deal with it ourselves? How do we deal with the emotions arising in ourselves when we don't like being around these stressful people? Well, we have mindfulness that emotion is arising. So that's the practicing of mindfulness. How do we deal with it? You cannot. You just accept that is the way it is, and it will soon pass. It will soon go away. Just as it's arisen, it will pass away. It's anicca, it's impermanent. I would love to know your view on the difference between self and ego, or is there even a difference? So self and ego, I'd say, is pretty much in the context that you're including it in here. I'd say is pretty much. Ego is generally thought of as a positive personality view, whereas self is any personality view. In Buddhism, we have a fetter, one of the last of the fetters, the 9th or 10th fetters that we have to cut prior to the final stage of enlightenment, of arahant, which is the fetter of conceit. I've forgotten the Pali word for it, but conceit is thinking, the obvious version of conceit that we all know is thinking you are better than others. But in Buddhism, it is also thinking that we are worse than others, but it is also thinking we are the same as others. Any view with regards to this personality is considered conceit, whatever it is in the Pali language. So conceit is very much an aspect of self, whereas one would think that the personality view we call ego, which isn't part of, there isn't a actual Pali word for ego. Ego means I in, what is it, Latin or Greek, something like that. Maybe, I'm not sure. But it generally means better than, or a positive view of your personality. So right view, or the included in right view, is the abandonment of what we call Sakkaya Ditthi, personality view. So the view that our personality is a self. So we're looking to understand anatta, which is that there is no self. There is just this personality created as a result of causes and conditions that we have put in place through all of our actions of body, speech and mind that we call karma. And the results of that in Pali we call vipaka, are often a personality as we see it here and now. But in this same moment here and now, we can be putting in place causes and conditions to change that, maintain that, improve it, or be working negatively to cause poor negative karma, resulting in unfortunate causes and conditions for the next moment. In a sense, that is rebirth, each moment. The death of the physical body, so the discontinuation of the physical body's function and the thinking brain's working order, when that all comes to an end, it's just within one moment that this momentum continues, maintaining this cycle of rebirth in samsara. Okay, that's a bit too long for now. It's a very long question. Statement: cannot love who don't deserve. So, who doesn't deserve metta, we'll say, not love, but metta, loving kindness. Who doesn't deserve compassion? Who doesn't deserve your joy when they have success? These are the Brahma Viharas, or the first three. The point of these three is through the practice of those, the development of those, we develop the fourth of upekkha, equanimity, unreactiveness, or at least reacting in the right way. So who does not deserve your love, your compassion, or your joy? You might say, well, somebody who's torturing another, somebody who's murderous, breaking all of the precepts in a very heinous way, doesn't deserve that. Maybe not in the just simple terms of the word love. You may feel that in its understanding. But we take these four Brahma Viharas together, and that individual does deserve, and need, in fact, compassion for the harm not only are they doing for others, but the far greater harm they're doing to themselves through those bad actions of body, speech and mind. So they deserve compassion. So if you think of love as all of the four Brahma Viharas put together, loving kindness, compassion, joy for others and equanimity, then you can see that there isn't a being that doesn't deserve an aspect of that. But it may be more difficult to give or to develop within yourself. It doesn't mean in Buddhism, love isn't going up and saying, "Oh, my dear, you're so nice," because this person's done something horrible. It's just developing in yourself the opposite to hatred, which only then causes harm to your own well-being. Whereas if you develop compassion for that poor person, for the suffering they're creating for others and themselves ultimately, then to some extent it alleviates your pain also. But it certainly, through your understanding, allows you, with equanimity, to be better positioned, placed to help that individual doing those bad things. So I think it's a statement that's a little bit too, it's wrong. Would come under a wrong view. But I can understand where it's coming from, because just the word love in it, on its own, can have many meanings. And how can a person be blamed for his or her karma when social, political, economic, chaotic systems compel a person to become defiled? So why should a person reap the fruits? So there are no real social, political, economic, chaotic systems that force you to do wrong. You may, through your through political reasons, social, economical systems, be, for instance, so forcibly drafted into the army, into a war, and ordered to kill. But you can miss. This is your decision. There are conscientious objectors too in the past. But sometimes the harm you'd be doing to yourselves, or even maybe others, by that action could be seen as negative karmic action. But obeying orders doesn't mean you have to succeed in those orders. So say this is an extreme example, and I don't think the person writing this comment is in this situation. If you are, forgive me. If you're ordered to go to war and kill, you can miss. Do as best your job you can to defend yourself and those around you without killing. That's all I can say as far as that extreme example. But anything below that or less extreme is really no excuse. Whatever's going on around you, you don't have to. I have no idea what's going on, either socially, politically, economically, in any of the chaotic systems, whether they be in my own country, this country, or other countries where I've lived in. No idea. I often hear it mentioned briefly in passing that things aren't good, but that's nothing new. They never have been. They're always changing. So I not hide away. There's nothing I can do to change it. If I was in amongst it and compelled to become involved, one would have to consider why it's compelling. Usually it's because it's something you don't agree with. Now I'm sure there's many things going on back at my own country that I don't agree with. But having lived there before I wasn't living there, I suppose, 40 odd years, through that experience realised there's very little I can do about it. Maybe I have a vote, but that doesn't make any difference much. That's only my view. But you know, you change a government, it's just another government. It continues. The suffering is always there. So why should that person reap the fruits? Because it was up to you. If you break the precepts for whatever reason, you've broken the precepts. You don't have to. No one is going to force you to kill, to steal, commit sexual misconduct, lie, or force you to take intoxicants. you will do those things because you're trying to change something you don't like. That is really hiding from the truth. So me not paying any attention to these things that are going on isn't really hiding, because I know they're going on. But I also know there's nothing I can do about it. But going there and being involved in it and breaking the precepts would be creating negative karma and doing harm to others as well as myself. Maybe one more if I find a short one. If someone takes the opportunity to abuse you in the comments section, excuse me, let me start again. If someone takes the opportunity to abuse you in the comment section, I wonder if you can see that as you're being the answer to their suffering in that moment. Well, yes, I think I can. I must say I don't have any abuse in the comments section, or nothing I would consider abusive. There's very nothing's restricted or deleted or blocked or edited. It's very natural, organic, and I find the comments positive or neutral. Maybe occasionally some negative comments come up, but they're usually useful pointers in the right direction, something I can adjust accordingly for the benefit of this, what I'm doing here, talking to you via this platform and this medium. But with regards to the Dharma, if you are keeping your precepts, and as a monk we have a lot more than 5, you know that you have that protection. This is the beauty of these Vinaya rules, of which there are thousands, but our 227 are just our practical ways to live in this life, knowing we're protecting ourselves from external abuse because we're doing no harm. So therefore that abuse, if you mean by abuse language, people saying things, is unfounded. And it's a little like the phrase of sticks and stones may hurt my bone, break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Now, of course, right speech is a very important aspect of this, and words can be powerful and can hurt people, but it's only feelings. It's only hearing things you don't want to be said. So if that was to happen, I can't think of an example where it has, then you're probably referring to some examples, maybe I haven't seen yet. It is, I suppose, allowing this person to, what you would say, vent their anguish, their anger, their disliking of a situation, and we can have compassion. And in that sense, by having compassion and by being an ear to listen, and not to enter into argument or debate, but simply to wish them well, and appreciating they have a view as well, without commenting as to whether it's wrong or right, is sufficient to perhaps, allay their suffering a little. And I think by that, I actually do reply to every comment, but often just to say, Sukhi hotu, be happy and well, is enough. Without getting into debates. I think, however, as I will just reiterate, as I've said in the past, if it goes beyond the first comment, if there's a chat, a discussion after the comment I see on the screen, I don't look at those. They go on for, there's I think some there going on for like 20 odd different messages, and some of them are very long about one subject. So this is where you as a community are debating amongst yourselves on various issues. And I can't get involved, simply I wouldn't have time to get involved in those long debates and conversations. And I don't think it's useful to do so. I don't think it's useful for anyone to do so, but certainly not for me to be involved in those. But when something's brought to my attention, as in a comment, so a fresh comment comes up on the line without me looking at all the replies, then I will indeed always reply to that. So if ever you feel unheard, that I haven't seen anything, just make another comment again afresh, not with hidden amongst the, what do you call it? The chain of comments, or the whatever it is, all the branches that go thereafter. And on that note, as I'm beginning to waffle on a little, I should leave it there until next time. Wishing you well. May you be happy and stay well. Until next time. Sukhi Hotu. Birds, chipmunks. Very nice. They know I finished.